So, Dr. Hills, Disney World is also reinstating its mask policy, requiring all guests over the age of 2 to wear one. So, having people wear masks, will that be enough to slow the spread of the Delta variant? What's your take on whether or not these masks can actually slow the number of people who are getting sick? Those are the folks who are not vaccinated.
Right, Vlad. I think what, for me, resonates most is that we now are learning with new information from last week that vaccinations alone are not enough to prevent infection. From the information that came out, the study on the Provincetown population in July, where 75% of their cases in that study were vaccinated people who had gotten infected, with the new information from the CDC that around 35,000 symptomatic infections are occurring now a week in people who've been vaccinated. Mind you, these are just symptomatic infections that are not hospitalizations. They're not deaths. They're infections outside of the hospital. So we believe vaccination is significantly providing protection against hospitalization and death and the things we want to avoid. But we're seeing infections in people who are vaccinated. This Delta variant is different in that way. And so I think now we have to really implement these other strategies, and we have to do it with intent and with focus, and really take the move across the country to think about masking indoors, even with vaccinated people. So yes, I think this move by these companies, by Walmart, by Kroger, is a really appropriate step, and I hope to see more organizations with large volumes of people coming through recommending masks again.
So the school year is around the corner, about a month ago, but in southern states they start even earlier than September. So there is guidance out there from the White House on reopening in-person classes safely, but it kind of already appears as if there's going to be sort of a hodgepodge across the country, much like the way we've tackled this pandemic the entire year and a half. Because I know in Florida, the governor there doesn't want masks mandated for kids in school, but in other places they probably most likely will have to wear masks. Also, some school districts may be holding pop-up clinics to get kids vaccinated who are 12 and up. I remember getting vaccines when I was in school, so it's not a new idea. But what about the younger kids? What if you have a kid that's under 12 that's, we don't know when this vaccine is going to be available to them. What do parents and kids need to know moving forward?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, it's really simple. People who are unvaccinated are at risk for getting severely ill, for getting hospitalized. And although our pediatric population appears to be getting less sick, as they have all along, people like me working in the hospital are seeing kids getting sick, some of them getting very sick. And I will say on a weekly basis, we're seeing kids be infected with this virus, often on an outpatient basis. So if we're going to get control of this virus, we have got to implement mask measures for the unvaccinated population. And of course now, in indoor environments, we're now moving toward masking for people who are vaccinated as well. So clearly thinking about protecting, in particular, our unvaccinated population, and that includes children. We've got to really think hard about how we're going to enter this school year. I think it's a time where we're going to be particularly vulnerable to surges and increases in infection with bringing kids back into an enclosed space with a large population of unvaccinated individuals. It is a bit disappointing to hear guidance from leaders like, for example, DeSantis banning mask mandates in school districts. I think that is probably the wrong move. It probably is going to put the population in school districts in Florida at increased risk for surges, but we'll see. I certainly would encourage them to rethink that. And I think as we move forward to the school year, implementing mask measures for children, for staff, for teachers, for everybody in the building makes a lot of sense.
Dr. Hills, as you may be aware, this weekend Lalapalooza was held in Chicago. More than 100,000 maskless people crowded together each day for the 4-day music festival. I don't know if we have images of that, but the images are pretty astounding.
Did you see some of those pictures?
I know. I was just saying.
Doctor, did you see some? Oh my goodness.
I know. And if you look at some of those images, look at this crowd. I mean, that is a lot of people. And look, I am all for, like, I believe the vaccines work. I'm vaccinated, so I'm out there. You know, we went to a restaurant last night. Like, I'm, you know, I'm in it. I'm living life. But when I see this, I would be a little worried. Not because I would worry that I would end up in the hospital, because I know that I'm vaccinated and I'm protected from that. But, you know, the thing about it, doctor, and it's what I say to people who ask me, you know, about the vaccines, about my particular status, it's, you know, if I become infected, there's a whole series of things that happens, right? Like, I'm sitting here, I'm in the broadcast center, the CBS News broadcast center. There are people that are around me that are working. If I get infected, then that means I potentially might have infected somebody else. So those people have to quarantine. There's like a bunch of different things that will happen if I become infected. And I'm not so worried about being deathly sick. I'm just worried about, like, what it will how it will upend my life. So an event like that, would you see it as a super spreader event? And would you have recommended to the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, to not hold an event like this? Or would you have just said, you know what, if people are vaccinated, which I believe the organizers said you had to be vaccinated to attend, that would be okay with you?
No, you didn't.
You didn't have to be, Emery?
No, you had to be either vaccinated or have a negative test within 3 days of going to the event. And if you were not vaccinated and you had a negative test, then wear a mask. But we know there's a little bit of gap time between, like, getting the results of your test and whatever you do. You know, I mean, if you're heading to Lalapalooza, I guess there's a possibility that you're not going to maintain your bubble in those 3 days, so you may be exposed again. But sorry, you are the doctor and I am not, so go ahead.
Well, guys, I have been to Lalapalooza and I remember it well. Yeah, if there was any super spreader event scenario, I would think that would be it. Like, regardless of a vaccination status, now we're seeing that, you know, people can spread this infection. Looking at those photos, it's impossible to think that that is not a risk for a super spreader event. And, you know, just looking back at that data again from Provincetown, they initially found just under 500 people that were infected who had been in Provincetown, but that number doubled when they looked at people outside of Provincetown who'd been in contact with the people who were there, who were part of that group that they studied. And now, you know, with the Delta variant, experts are estimating as many as 8 or 9 people per infected person can then also become infected. So we're just seeing such a high rate of transmission with this Delta variant, and with that many people crowded into that close of a space, exactly like you said, Anne-Marie, not all of them necessarily vaccinated, and we don't know the quality of the test that they were given to detect the COVID-19 in their nasopharynx. We don't know, you know, how valid those tests were, or whether they could have been in contact and become infected, you know, after they got their test to attend the concert. So many variables. It certainly looks concerning to me. But as with this virus, with all other things, it seems time will tell, and we'll probably learn 3 or 4 weeks from now exactly how this particular event affected the Chicago community.
Speaking of time, Dr. Hills, I want to see a T-shirt. I want to see you in a Jane's Addiction T-shirt circa 1991 at Lollapalooza.
I will send it to you. It is in the files for sure.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Susannah Hills.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too.